Hi everyone, and thank you for watching today. I am joined by my beautiful friend Amy, who, if you don't know her yet, then you're going to love this chat. She is on Instagram as Bizbrook Artisans. That's right, isn't it?
That's right.
And we connected when Amy was going through her breast cancer treatment, and Amy's become one of my very dear friends. So I'm really excited to have you next to me today.
Thank
you.
Thank you for having me.
And we will start, as all of the chats do, with it's over to you. Share
Thank you.
anything about when kind of breast cancer came crashing into your life.
So I live in a little sleepy village called Bisbrook in Rutland, and the reason that's my part of my Instagram handle is that is where we originally did a sourdough bread business. My husband then at the time and I used to market the bread. So that's when I came across Instagram. Then in 2021, I got diagnosed with breast cancer and it had spread to my lymph nodes. And at that time, I remember I'd also just was in a state really because there's an awful lot going on. And I know Carly, as a personal friend of mine, you know a lot of the background, which I'm happy to share. But basically, Lance, my husband, had left to go to America to look after his mother. And we separated, to be honest. The food business, the sourdough business got affected by COVID. There was a lot going on at the time for lots of people. And I think that what happened to me is, with a broken heart at the time, I remember, oh my goodness, sobbing my heart out, not quite sure of what was going to happen next. And then, why is it that life throws more at you? 2 months after Lance had left for America, I get called back from a routine mammogram. And that's why I'm very pro-routine mammograms as well. I mean, I treated it casually. I'm going to be absolutely honest. A lot of people have said to me since that they sometimes don't go. They put the appointment in the bin. No one needs to feel bad for that. It's just that let's get there. Let's treat these routine checks as well important. Had I felt my breast before the routine mammogram, I would have felt a large lump.
Okay.
It was right. It was my left breast at the bottom of my nipple here. I would have felt it, but I didn't. I assumed that because there was no breast cancer in my family, that it was one of the rarest disease in my family. I was wrong, because after the age of 50, that is why they try and give you a more frequent mammogram. Isn't that right? So I did not know that. That's partly my ignorance, but I also think since then I've noticed that it isn't actually anywhere. For example, where I went for my routine mammogram, there wasn't one sign that said that. And I think if anyone else thinks like me, you really do need to be understanding why they do it after the age of 50, because it rises to 1 in 7, regardless of history. And some things, obviously, some kinds of breast cancer isn't picked up by mammograms, so there's that. So when I had this letter saying come back, that is when something began to happen. That was, where I was in shock even then. A lot of my friends at the stage said, oh, don't worry, you get called back and it isn't, anything. And that's true as well. But I think there was something about it for me where I knew that there was something, because they said, there's something we suspect. And so that's when I felt my breast.
Okay.
And I felt the lump.
Yeah. So your heart must have sunk at that point.
Totally sunk. And I didn't tell anyone. I didn't want to tell my girls. I didn't tell my parents, my family, my friends at that stage. I did not tell anyone. And then what happened was I went to a family occasion that day, and I was laughing and just joining in with the family as you do. And I think it's because, looking back, and I think you will identify with this, Carly, I didn't also, not just because I didn't want to worry anyone, but also it would be too real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it can be such a strange time when things kind of go differently. Say for you got the letter. That was unusual for you. You'd gone for mammograms before, you'd not got a letter.
Yeah.
When I went to get my scan, I was just assuming it would be ultrasound and I would be sent on my way because the swelling under my armpit would be nothing. But once suddenly it was biopsy, mammogram happening, I was so caught in this world of things moving so quickly that I went for dinner with girlfriends that evening and didn't tell them, even though I was bandaged up. So I think it is very common that you do that kind of, well, I can't make this real because it's not going to be anything anyway still. And so I'm just not going to give it any energy. So people react, you can react so differently to how you think you might.
I think you're absolutely right. Trying to carry on as normal, but also not giving in to that, because once you do, and also feeling so confused and not sure. So I think it was the first time when I told people, I told my daughters, I think that's what it was, and I wanted to tell them all at the same time. And there's no easy way, because I sent a joint app message, and I think each one of them afterwards said, Mum never tells us that she's going to call all of us at the same time. It's definitely something serious. And they tried to think of things. They knew that Lance had already left, so it wasn't that, and they couldn't think what. Bless them. So we got onto a joint app, and I remember their four little faces together at the same time. Telling people is so hard. That's when I realised as well that you're also trying to be strong for them. Not that they're asking you to do that. But when I saw each one of my daughter's faces, telling them this news, I could only imagine that what if it was the other way around, one of my daughters had it, it would be the same. It's the last thing you want to hear, isn't it? So bless them. They had 4 different responses, and they needed time, obviously, over time. But telling them was a good idea.
Is this you told them that you had the letter, or is this what you told them when you had the diagnosis?
I told them that I had the biopsies done. Yes, this was after, so not the letter, but after. I waited then, and then after that I told them that it is cancer. Well, I wanted to be, so that we had something to go on. And then I said to them that I'm not sure if I'm telling my parents yet, we'll do it together. And that's when they supported me. We all went together to a family occasion, and I told my parents.
You've touched on something so important, which is, not only are you hearing that you've got breast cancer and everything that comes with that, and all the fear and all the kind of medical appointments and everything that changes you immediately, it is almost, I would say, impossible not to also take on board almost micromanaging how you're telling people, not wanting to hurt people, but it is knowing it's going to, and then seeing in other people their reactions and going, oh God, this is real, like this is serious. It's really difficult, that stage, I would say, of diagnosis.
And I suppose, again, many people even need to look after the person they're telling it to. It depends, doesn't it? It must be. And I tried to put myself in their position, and I understood that it's fairly normal. I would say it's a normal behaviour for the person you're telling something like that. If they're close, they're going to also be affected. But hard as it is, I tried not to look after others too much, because you've got to try and find out how you want to do this, how you want to do it. And with my parents, it was actually quite a good example of where my father just almost collapsed, devastated. He was really, really, and then I had to remember that's my father. He's thinking I'm his daughter, his little girl still, and vice versa. And so I understood it, but at the time I remember something instinctively, and I just looked after him. And then my mum was interesting, because she did say to him, stop crying, almost like this is about Amy, and she's stronger that way. But then later on, I found her crying. So that was the best thing I did, though, as well, for people who are going to struggle telling is I think you know who you want to tell as well. But I couldn't have done without the way it all turned out, without their support and friends, and slowly. And that's when, after that, I don't think I told Lance straight away, for example. I kept that a little bit longer because I couldn't even think of anyone. And I think the journey then, when it was breast cancer, when it was all confirmed as it went along, and then you have your trajectory of all of those appointments. I can't even tell you, Carly, what came first. There was loads of wait. All I knew was you're going to have chemo first.
Yeah.
So you have this summer off. you're going to have chemo. I had long blonde hair that summer. And I remember thinking, I've got the summer off. And it's just the way I could cope. I thought, okay, Amy, you have this summer off, which is about 2 months. Go and enjoy yourself before chemo. I didn't know what to expect from chemo. And that's when I realised that I also didn't want the kind of worry that my dad was going to give me. And I started my boundaries then. I said, Dad and Mum, listen, I've got this awful cancer, but I'm not tired because I didn't feel ill.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out. I'm going to meet my friends. I'm going to do things that I want to do. And I spent a lot of it in London during that summer. And it was a summer where I met friends from Instagram that I hadn't met before. And I think that what happened was it was one of the best summers. I don't know how I did it, but you find something within. And that's when I started to dance a lot as well and enjoy myself and and the joy can be genuine when you focus on it anyway. I think the other people around me may have been more worried for me, but that's okay as well. Everybody has to cope in their own way.
Well, I think sometimes I've said with friends before, it can be more difficult almost if for those around you, because there's the helpless feeling. That's a really difficult feeling to sit with, feeling helpless.
Yes.
Whereas you are here, sitting here saying you had this really lovely summer. You're the one that was living with the cancer and the prospect of all that was to come. Yes. And so you were able to do that digging deep and that finding that joy and realizing that you could have that joy alongside knowing, you're sitting with all those complexities within you, whereas everyone else is, like you said, more worried because they're like, is Mum okay, or is Amy okay? And that is, it's a difficult place to...
It's very, very difficult.
Not have that.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
So then came chemo, and I think it was towards the end of September, and I really didn't know what to expect. Obviously, you hear about chemo being like, oh, that's poison coming into your body. And it started off with, I think, after seeing the breast surgeon who tells you all about the trajectory, and that's when I was told you'll have chemo first, then you'll be back to us for an operation. So that's as far as we got, possibly radiotherapy. So it's your plan, isn't it? Plan of action. And I think when it was my chemo, when did I contact you? Because I remember
you were in chemo, and
I think it was started my chemo.
You were quite unwell.
I was quite unwell.
Yeah. If you're okay to talk about that,
yes, I will.
This is not to scare anyone that might be watching, because I've talked to a few people, and I know a lot of people in the cancer community, as do you, and that is the main thing, is everyone reacts so differently.
So different.
I have friends who worked all the way through treatment, and I have friends who have had quite rare reactions to treatment, and I've had someone like me who's in the middle of it, who felt tired for a few days and then was still able to enjoy myself other days, so nothing was too extreme with me. But you did have quite an extreme reaction.
I had, so it was all until December. I think it was all the way through till December. In the end, they had to stop it, but I actually asked them to stop it. But the way the chemo treatment started was and that was perhaps an interesting beginning. I'm going to call it interesting because it was hard at the time, but the actual oncologist that saw me was treated me terribly. And very briefly, if I can say the story, is if you ever feel something is wrong in the way that a medical staff is talking to you, you can have a right to stand up there and then and say, this has to stop. I wish to see someone else.
Absolutely.
I never knew that.
So that is such an important thing to share at any point. I think we don't realise we can change hospitals, change teams. I never met the oncologist that my breast surgeon wanted me to go with. However, I was recommended to go with someone who was specifically in triple negative, and there was a connection that I could see him, and so I did do the jump. I did change oncologists early on, and I did feel a bit like, oh, is my breast surgeon going to think I'm a difficult patient because I'm asking to see someone else that he's not, suggested? But it wasn't. That people are okay for you to move. And
I think that's what you've hit on, is you feel you're going to be difficult. So we're people pleasers, and honestly, trust in yourself. Know that you're very polite. It's about looking after your body. You know your body. And also with my example, he was actually rude.
Yeah. And so
An emotional level, because I walked in with my phone, you see, and I was trying to contact Lance. By that stage, I told him I'd got cancer and he wanted to be present at the meeting. This was COVID, when you couldn't take anyone with you. So I was just getting his number. He's in America. It takes a little bit of time, but it wasn't a long time. I just had what it was I was looking down, and he actually said to me, "Are you going to put that phone away?"
Yeah, I mean, that is not
you
handle someone.
And I think I was
feeling vulnerable,
shock.
feeling sensitive.
Yeah.
And
so after that, when he said that, I said, I need him to be here though. So if you don't mind, I am going to contact. I went ahead, and he then said, I don't want anyone present, because I need you to 100% listen to everything I'm saying, because it's going to be serious. So he's also scaring me with his language. I can't explain it, like serious. Well, of course the whole thing is serious, but do you know what I mean? You try and give somebody, if you like, comfort and reassurance. Not
before COVID, you were allowed to have someone in those appointments, and for a very valid reason. It's really difficult to take on board everything that's being said to you.
Well, so that's what happened. So afterwards, I think I was in shock, and he said, "Are you ready?" like that, and he said whatever he said. I couldn't tell you what he said because I shut down even more. So I signed something, and then sometimes it takes that. He went. Then I said, when he got up, and he said, Did you understand everything? And I just went yes, and I walked out. And it's when I walked out, I realised I was in such a state that I went over to the reception and said, I cannot see him again. So that's how I did it. I was in shock. And I said, who do I complain to? And they gave me the email for can you remember what it's called? Patients. Is it called PI something? Sorry, I don't know. Sure. But I wrote, even in that state, I went home because it was actually probably quite good for me to write how he made me feel. It was so wrong at the beginning of a cancer journey. Since then, I have just realized that I wasn't even rude to him. What it is it's about knowing your rights and also getting the care that you need. So going from that to my next oncologist, who's lovely, it's really lovely. I did call her about before my chemo ended. I just couldn't handle it. I couldn't eat. I had thrush. I had every side effect you could imagine. And my body wasn't handling it. And she did say that we can stop it. So they stopped it. Then I cried because I was worried that, will I be compromised with the tumour if you stop? So they stopped it. Obviously, you go through the usual sometimes with hair loss and all of that, which was also, by that stage, during it, I don't think I felt everything until afterwards, because I remember walking past the mirror, and I've always been known, I've been lucky, I suppose, and I got very, sort of used to my skin, it never had spots, no blemishes, nothing. And I passed the mirror, and I remember seeing the side of my body and legs, and I hadn't noticed it before, full of these blemishes and rashes. And I thought, and I just burst into tears. And I remember falling on the floor in front of the mirror and just crying and actually feeling so sorry for me. And then as I cried, I remember thinking, it's horrible how you look, Amy, is so horrible. And then after that, I remember turning it around, flipping it on its head. It was probably the best thing I could have done. In a way, it was a very cathartic, very spiritual time, where I then said to myself that basically that is you. You've had 4 children, Amy. You've been through so much with your body. You've done lots of things. And it wasn't just respecting my body. I really realized that it's still trying to save you. Yeah. It is still trying to save you. It's doing your best, even with the chemo. And that's when I turned it away from the chemo a bit to saying, you've done absolutely great, and I felt so much compassion for myself. That was the start. That was the start of falling in love with myself. Now, we all say that, love yourself. But do you know, I actually think that when it becomes really real, you begin to say and do things totally, totally differently. You talk to yourself in a different way. You act with compassion, and your compassion allows you to give more compassion, in fact. And do you know, of course, I've always been, everybody said, oh, Amy, but you've always been lovely and generous and this and that, as your friends will tell you. But I think deep, deep down, this kind of falling in love, for example, finally made me realize that, yes, Lance left me, but actually now I know that I have to love myself so deeply that even if we are to get back together, there's never going to be a shift in that. It makes you see things so differently. How that happened through all of that time, and honestly, I spent quite a long time still crying. And then I remember being quite joyful and thinking, I didn't know if the blemishes would go away. I did not know. I wasn't promised anything at that stage. But it didn't matter. I just thought, you know what? You are so beautiful. And when I cried, I think even now I can get tearful about that moment, because I think of other people. I do think of everything you've been through. We see our photos. We know we've been there. We've touched something that is so other. And most traumas are like that. And then to make sense of it takes a long while. But there are moments, aren't there, where you realize you do something. And when I went to bed, back to bed, because that's where I was, because I was also bedridden, like you say, people who go for walks. And my friend was saying, I'm just going to take the dog for a walk. And he had chemo. And I remember thinking, going for a walk, I couldn't even stand up. I had, extreme sort of blood pressure issues. I had a blood clot. There was lots going on. And then when I went back to bed that day, I ordered these. Oh, can I show them, Carly?
Yes.
I ordered these red boots.
Yes, look how fabulous. And you were wearing these the first time I met you, actually.
Yes.
The red boots.
So I ordered them, and I thought, I don't know when I'm going to wear them, but that's my hope.
Yeah.
I'm going to wear those boots, and I'm going to dance in them.
Yes.
And I'm going to dance everywhere. I don't know where I got that everywhere, meaning everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's when I bought them. So do you know what? I know it sounds really silly, but if these break and tear, which they will, I think I will cry.
That's absolutely okay, because
they bury them.
They're symbolic.
Symbolic.
They're so symbolic to you of that time where you were feeling at your most rock bottom. I think
it was
for you physically, and and like you say, looking in the mirror, that's a very difficult thing. I've met people that have not been able to look in the mirror when they've lost their hair and they have had their surgery, and then it is a slow process to heal. But that for you was like, I will get there. I'm going to wear these boots. And so they are, when they start to break, like put them in one of those glass perspex boxes and make art out of them.
I love that. I wondered if it was like Dorothy in Wizard of Oz. She wore her shoes. What colour were they?
They
yellow,
were red.
Brick red. They were red. Sparkly. So mine aren't sparkly, but it was afterwards I thought I can see a correlation. She needed them to get to where she wanted to get to.
And so red is the root chakra colour, and
that's what one of my friends
Chopra said. He always wears red on his feet, and ever since I tend to get red painted toenails, so it's very good. It's for grounding.
Lovely.
Red on your feet is perfect.
I love that.
And you're, intuitively you knew you needed that red.
I did.
Grounding.
And as I say, I didn't know where I was going to dance or what I was going to do, because afterwards, after the chemo, when they stopped, and they did say that I was malnourished. Basically, I didn't eat anything for 7 weeks. I don't know how I did that. I wasn't myself. And that's the first time, I'll be honest with you, even though when I told my family and my daughters I had cancer, this actually was harder, because in a way they were in pain watching me disappear. They felt, Georgia only recently said how much it affected her. They felt I was dying at that time. But I was so in a bad place that I couldn't see what they could see. I couldn't even see myself. But I was obviously working on myself in that way. Just sort of cheering myself on. You hold on to something, don't you? And you look back. It's very hard to know what it is. But like for me, it had to be symbolic, like the boots. It wasn't even buying cream for my body, for example. It was something else. And I thought, well, I can dance. And when I can dance, I'll dance my way out of this or through this.
And obviously you're here looking utterly fabulous, and the boots are that fashion, they are a standout piece. And I would say that if anyone was to find you today, through your social media and how you share, you are kind of bright, beautiful fashion, and you are dancing, as you said, everywhere and anywhere. I mean, you've had me dancing in streets and in office buildings and in parks and anywhere, that is that is something that you bring, and it is joyful, and it is, I believe, seeing you kind of come with your first time I met you with your shorter hair,
yes,
and come now to this beautiful length now. But you've danced your way through every step of the way.
I have.
So did you dance before breast cancer?
Yes, I always loved dancing at parties. I was I would just get up on the floor, have a few drinks, and there I was on the table, even, right? So and a table that broke once in a restaurant as well.
Amazing.
So I have. The difference, though, I think, is quite subtle, and what it is I also remembered that if I was feeling down, I wouldn't dance. I just wasn't in the mood. The difference is, and I'm not suggesting to anyone to do anything, that you have to find your joy. Everybody finds their joy. And I think what it was for me, dancing was it, and music. And I found that this time, the difference was that it wasn't me dancing at a party. It wasn't me having a few drinks and then dancing. It was moving my body, I think, and finding access to a way where I could shift something. I could move something by moving my body, whether it was a thought, whether it was a feeling. And on the whole, even sadness sometimes. It's not that I wanted not to face my pain, face my sadness, sit with those uncomfortable feelings and emotions, which is very important to do. It was more that I found, no wonder joy is your right, because I would cry sometimes before I found my joy, because it is such a human right to feel loved, to feel joyful, to give joy to others, to receive joy from others. It doesn't make you flippant about sorrow. It doesn't make you, what's the word? Oh, how dare she dance and listen to music when there's such crime going around the world, when our world is in such a state. I was very, very influenced by, and I think you love her too, Dr. Edith.
Oh, Eager, yes.
Eager, sorry.
Eager? Dr. Edith Eager. She wrote
Edith. Sorry, I just stopped at Edith. Yeah. And she said that during the Holocaust and during the most difficult times, she said the women would sing and they actually danced. You still need to have that outlet. It doesn't mean you are minimizing or disrespecting sorrow and grief. No. And I think that's the only thing every now and then I remind people is, Lance had left. I had a broken heart. That is a form of grief. I didn't have a body. Sorry, it still upsets me.
Yeah.
And I think I made light of it because we were friends. He was still talking. So it wasn't like death, but it was a death of a relationship. And all kinds of different griefs that I've had from childhood and traumas. And cancer was one more. Yeah. And life is like that. It's always going to be one more of something. So when I did begin to dance in areas, it had to be London. I've got a love of London, which I need to quickly say is because my father really influenced me on that when he was younger, and he was a doctor. He had a job that he could have had in London and he couldn't take it at the time because of us being small. He chose Wales, and now they're back in London. Eventually he retired. He just loves London.
You do love
and
London.
I love London.
I love your love of London. And it makes me fall in love with London more because I'm just a Londoner, and sometimes when you're from somewhere you don't realise it's magic. So every time you're like, I'm back in London, I'm like, oh, this is good.
So I had to dance there. So when I got well enough, I think it was after my operation, I had a little gap before radiotherapy. I wore these red boots and I still had my short hair because it obviously takes a long time for it to grow. And I remember going up to a singer in Oxford Circus. That was my first dance. He had a beautiful voice. And I did say, do you mind if I just dance? He goes, go ahead. But I do like to ask. And then when I started, I remember these feelings going through like a conveyor belt on your brain as they do. You show off. Don't be daft. Don't be silly. People are going to laugh at you. don't you see that they're going to think you're arrogant? All these things. Who are you to even dance? You're not even a dancer, because I'm not a dancer. And, you know, no, I just, something in me took over, and I just started to move my body. And that's how I became brave. It was like courage can happen with your body. Because of everything my body was going through, surely that's brave. Oh my God, that's hard enough. Now, just move it, Amy, to the music. And that's what I did. And I was surprised at how many people loved it, came over to me at the end. There was a girl that said, let me video you. And they kissed me, they hugged me, strangers hugging me. And I couldn't help it. And that's the other journey that began then, Carly, is I just said, oh, do you know, I've got breast cancer. And I just said it without shame, without fear. And it wasn't also to try and get self-pity. It wasn't for sympathy. There was something in me that was also sharing, because this is who I am, not just who I'm clothed, you know, not just my clothes, but this is what I'm going through. But because maybe of the way I said it, I didn't get self-pity. I just had more people saying, wow, really? Well, my auntie, this, and then my sister, this. Eventually, people offloaded their stories. When you think 1 in 2 are going to have some kind of cancer, and it's not to scare people, it's just to say early detection. That's what is so important, isn't it? That's where we're all coming from. And to keep an eye on symptoms, and to go there. And after that dance, I'm a bit of a butterfly when I speak, all over the place. But after that dance, I didn't stop. And I think it doesn't mean that I wasn't scared. I remember thinking afterwards, oh my God, afterwards I did get a little minute of, what the hell did you just do there? And equally, can I just say, there's a thought that goes through your head where it also sounds as if, oh yeah, look, I did do it, as if that was the bravest thing to do. It's not. It's not the bravest either. It's just what it is it is doing something that for you, you know, you've gone out of your comfort zone.
It was healing.
And it was very healing. And it's accessing joy, and it was connection with other people.
And also,
I needed the other people.
You're spreading joy. And that is, I think, not only were you accessing it for yourself during a really difficult time, and it is completely valid. There doesn't need to be, you've said, you know, joy is accessible for everyone. And I think there is real power in spreading joy. And life is difficult, and that is, you know, we can grieve and we can feel joy, and they can be there together. And actually, I never have ever thought dancing, which means she's not, life is full of sunshine. You're dancing throughout all of it. That is a very hopeful message to give to people.
I really would love that to be the message, Carly, because you know that saying, dance as if no one is watching. I did think that you can flip it on its head, because I did dance as if everyone is watching. But then by learning to love myself through that, it is like no one is watching, because then I understood what that meant. It's where, in a way, in the kindest way, you don't care, but also you don't worry about being an idiot or any of those things. And that's why it's authentic then. It's real. And I also hope to dance at parties. I will do that more and more as well, which is what I used to do. My girls love dancing. It's in the family. They all love dancing. And I think it's just quite a human need to sing and dance, whether you can sing or not, whether you can dance or not, finding your own free way of moving to music. I'm a great advocate for that. However, I also want to say that sometimes it might be painting for you. It might be writing, because that's the other two things I did enjoy. Is, you know, during chemo, for some reason, I could not read a book. My focus is still bad. I worry about it sometimes, but I really can't read the books I used to read. But my goodness, I started to write.
So I saw something, and it's interesting. You just said then, you know, dancing, singing, and I can't dance and I can't sing. And this quote, and I won't get it correct completely, but it was along the lines of what a sad world we live in, where people feel like they can't sing and they can't dance and they can't paint, because we are, you know, seeing such well, what's the word? Like talent. There's so much talent, right, that we are seeing now. But actually, everyone can sing and everyone can dance and everyone can draw, just like every bird sings their song. And
Lovely.
something about that did hit me like, actually, yes, I've always thought I can't sing, but I love to sing.
Yes.
So we find a place. I sing in my car really loudly to my ballads, and I sing in front of my kids, and we can all sing, and we can all, and also people can find, like you said, their way to heal that might not be singing, dancing, painting even, but it's accessing what it is for them,
what it is for
that
you,
allows them to heal slowly.
Like, even though I love my clothes and a lot of them are pre-loved, a lot of them are colours. I used to always wear colours before, but it's actually different. Again, it's a very different thing I'm doing, and it fascinates me. It's coming from the inside. It's also finding my joy through it, but I'm not telling others, you've got to wear certain clothes. No, I think who you are, when you fall in love with who you are, your path lights up, and you will know that's your path, whether it's writing, painting, reading, whatever it is your passion is. And you're right, I think sometimes you compare yourself, like with writing. Yes, I went through a phase of saying, well, there's so many great authors. Well, there are.
There's also so many coffee shops everywhere, and they still keep opening coffee shops.
And also your writing is to do with you, and you have to find your writing. And I think as an educator, when I was in schools, I forget that as well. How many little children have actually said to me, but I can't paint. And that used to break my heart. A 6-year-old saying, I can't paint. And I would take them gently through that process. Why not? Why do you think you can't paint? And even at that age, whether it's society or family, it comes from all of us with the media. They said, yeah, but I can't make a lion look like a lion. I said, do you know? And that's when I would go into Picasso and show them that, do you know, it depends how you want to see the lion. Some people will draw a lion and you might say straight away, there's the lion. And other people might feel that lion and they won't paint it like the same. And, and I did a lot of work with that, and I would put up all their art, and try and encourage. Same with singing. So when children do that, it's in trend. I realised that, I can't do this, I can't do that. And so we had a saying of saying, we had to stop the I can't. I went through a whole project where we weren't allowed to say I can't. If you do say I can't, say I can't do that yet. And that's coined from someone else, not from me, another psychologist and positive training. And so they went round, they knew that they had to say that all the time. I can't yet.
But I love that you're talking about that with your children, and how you've taught them that around singing and art and things like that as adults we can really shy away from. But there's, in Future Dreams, where both of us have had quite a lot of support with our cancer diagnosis, they have choirs, they have singing groups, they have ballet, they have creative art spaces. And so people with breast cancer diagnosis are going there and are discovering, and it's a bit like, and I always call it inner child healing.
Yes,
and there is something really beautiful about when you're confronted with your health and the way of getting a diagnosis of breast cancer. It can open doors to healing in different ways that you maybe will take you by surprise. And actually, there's knitting groups, there, all this stuff. And I think that's a really...
And another word, because I love, healing, and I think it's processing as well. So all of those activities, and Future Dreams is a fabulous place, isn't it? I mean, I call it almost my second home, and I wish there was a Future Dreams for everyone. And I think that's really helps you access things. So you're doing things with your hand, your heart, your mind, and your body. That's what it is. Because we have been through such a physical trauma that you don't even realize what is left until later, because you can't process everything when you're going through what you're going through, because in fact you shouldn't, because you should be focusing on something else, and that's why it makes sense, doesn't it, to do it later. And then going along with the name of Future Dreams, I think I'm at that stage where obviously I'm not ever going to know if my cancer is going to come back, and there's that fear of secondary cancer always. As my oncologist said, there's a 33.3% chance of your cancer coming back, but why don't you look at it at 60? I'm hopeless at maths, 67 or whatever it was, chance
like
of it
70,
not
30,
happening.
yeah.
So you can't live like that, but you can also admit to your fears. It's okay. By me being frightened sometimes more than other times of that is just me being human. It is natural to be scared, even though I have so many friends with secondary cancers and I love them to bits. And sometimes you can feel guilty that, oh, but I haven't got that. And I think that together we grow, together on this path, as long as we're true to ourselves. That's all that matters. And with future dreams, the reason I brought that up as well is I'm ready now to activate my dreams. I really am. Whatever I'm thinking of, and one of them is Lance and I have got back together and he's coming to UK in April for a little holiday. And those who follow me on Instagram know that I've gone over to San Francisco. So we have been working together a lot on getting back together. And I tell you the truth, like a lot of relationships that you have, sometimes you sense that there's different beginnings and different endings. And this is
you're stepping into a new beginning. It's beautiful. My question is, you speak a lot about new beginnings and what came from breast cancer in quite a positive way. It's a difficult question because it's worded strangely, but are you almost grateful to breast cancer for giving you a new perspective? Is there gratitude there as well? Or
there's gratitude. And I think you're right. This could be trigger for people as well. Like, are you saying, because I've had someone saying, are you saying that you had to have cancer, Amy? And I'm trying to reword it because you don't want to offend anyone and you don't want anyone else's experience to be diminished by yours. So with that in mind, though, I will step forward with courage to say, it did take cancer for me. For me, it took cancer. And the way I look at it is, you could also say, did it take Lance leaving me? Yes, it did. It took Lance leaving me. You could say the deaths I've had in my family, did it take those deaths for me to realise something, for me to grow, for me to change? Yes, it did.
It's all part of it.
It's all part of it, because at the end of the day, there's always going to be uncertainty. I cannot control these elements in my life. Disaster, traumas, tragedies do happen in life. I feel that by embracing it all is, if you like, flipping the other thing on its head, where you wake up with anxiety saying, what if this happened? What if this happened? Because that is also not a way to go through life. And I think, yeah, I am actually really grateful. Look what's happened. I mean, look at the people I've met, the places I've been, the way I have actually lived my life at my age as well. I'm even aging in a positive way. I'm 64 and I don't even look at an anti-wrinkle cream. I don't even think of it for other people. I think that people aging beautifully is an honour. Aging the way, by beautifully, I mean when you're embracing it, your inner beauty is going to embrace it. It's not just about the outer. We can grieve about the way we've lost some of our looks. I grieve when I look at my photos of my blonde hair. Where's it gone? And at the moment I've got some issues. There's thinness. But what it is there's nothing wrong with saying, oh, I missed that blonde hair. Oh, look at me when I was 20. It is okay to grieve for lost things, but embracing who you are now is you can get nothing more beautiful. And I think that it's okay when tragedies happen, it's okay to hold two conflicting feelings at the same time. Yeah. So while I can be happy, and I can also be upset and sad for others with different things and myself, while I can find joy, I can also remember the sorrow that exists for my friend at the moment. And in my own life, definitely, I would not want to go through things again. That day when Lance left me was probably the most devastating day that I can remember before my cancer. They're very different feelings, truthfully. But I remember losing someone. I did not know how I would even be Amy. And what I realised is I became more Amy. Yeah. So by losing Lance, I realised that there was something in this that will work out. Either way, we'll stay best friends, or yes, he is gone, but I will find something. And what I found was me. So that self-love growth, which I hope continues, I one day want to try and articulate that. That's going to be a very central part to my book that I want to write. And I know there's lots out there. Oh, I've got lots of friends who've written about self-love and I love reading it. It's absolutely not something new, but I want to say it from my story, because that is what it was doing right from a young age, right from a little age when probably I experienced abandonment and lots of issues like that, not knowing my birthday, lots of things to do with identity loss. Throughout that, I've realised that that's the past. That is the past. It did happen. And I can really love that, Amy, and leave it where it is. I now have moved on.
Huge acceptance.
And I'm not needing to go back there, but I now know where I do need to go. And if I can write my story, and if it did help anyone, do you know what I'd love? Most of all, whether you can embrace your tragedies and sorrows, you have to decide that for yourself. Why did you get cancer? Not even why, but what you did with your cancer, maybe. How it, took you along your path is up to you. But what I would love to offer, if you like, is this idea that I get lots of people saying things like, oh, but Amy, you can do it, I can't. I've had lots of strong, beautiful people saying, it's okay for you, but I couldn't do it. Throughout my life, actually, not just because of my cancer, it's whatever it is. And even in my education and teaching, I had teachers saying, oh, but Amy, I just love the way you just did that, can't do it. The idea isn't that you should be Amy. It's more that they must like something. They've connected with me on some level and they like it. But what they are fearing is that they can't come into the light and they can't do it their way, and they can. The stage is large enough for us all. There's enough light.
Yeah, there is, and you are shining yours, and it's allowing people, it's that mirror, it allows people to see the light and step more into it if they have the fears that, come along.
Well, you, Carly, obviously Carly is now one of my dearest friends, but I shall never forget when I was so low and I rang you and you gave me your time, which you will for anyone. And I knew you were that kind of person. But then to become friends is just the icing on the cake.
Oh, and
one of the kindest and most generous.
So grateful to our friendship. We are nearing.
I'm sure we're nearing.
We are nearing. So we can cut this out. Kim, cut it out. But for one last question, which I would love to end with, seeing as you are my dancing queen. What is the song that you that you will put on if you ever need a lift, and that will be your best song to dance to?
It has to be the first song that I I do sing. I try and sing with it in my kitchen when I was really ill, was Bruce Springsteen's song, Dancing in the Dark. And I was playing it and I was trying to move, because I did try and move a little bit during chemo. And I remember thinking, I just cried then with the words, dancing in the dark, and you're a spark, and we can't have a fire without us all being that spark. It meant a lot to me. I've always loved the music, but I hadn't listened to the words before. And that is definitely my song. And that is the one I chose up Future Dreams to dance to when they had Simon the photographer around. And it was lovely because he, instead of doing a head and shoulder photos of me, he said, dance.
Yes,
I love those words, beautiful. Dance and Future Dreams, letting me dance in Future Dreams. It was just amazing. And that was the song.
Oh, you are a spark, Amy. Thank you so much.
And you're a spark.
Yeah, we spark.
And the people behind this video, aren't they lovely as well?
Yes, the amazing OWise team.
OWise team.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story today. I'm sure it's going to help so many people who need that they need their red boots moment. They need to have that insight, and you will show them that there is that.
Thank you.
Lots of life after breast cancer diagnosis. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God.
Bye.